Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio, and today I want to talk about the cumulative acquisition cost per opportunity. Oh man, that's a long title. The cumulative acquisition cost per opportunity. In simple words, how much does it cost for you to acquire a new client? What's the real cost of acquiring a new client? Now, I want to give you an example here, and we're going to break down the cost. We're going to dig in deep, and we're going to cover concepts like lifetime value. We're going to talk about return on investment. We're going to talk about opportunity cost. All this is going to be wrapped up in understanding the true cost of what it costs to get an actual customer for the first time. So let's walk through a real world example. Let's say that you decided to do a trade show. And by the time you pay for the fee, by the time you pay for the spot on the actual show floor, by the time you got your booth there all set up, let's say that the cost was $10,000. Okay, $10,000. And at the end of those 2 or 3 days of that trade show, let's say you collected 100 leads. Okay, so you returned to the office and you've collected 100 leads. Now, you're going to have to go through all these leads, make phone calls, and that's going to cost you a little bit of money. So let's add another $3,000 on top of that. So the new total is $13,000. And by the time you really qualify all these leads, all these 100 leads, you're left with 5 leads. But the total cost right now is $15,000. So let me go through this slowly. You spend $10,000 at the trade show, but over the last month, let's say, you spent an additional $5,000 qualifying every single lead, and you've come up with 5 qualified leads. Now, the total cost is $15,000, which means your cost per qualified lead is $3,000. So let's take one of those leads, right? Let's take one of those customers, and now you're going to put them through your sales process. Now, let's say that your process has 8 steps. And typically you have a sales cycle of 1 month. In other words, it takes you a month from a qualified lead to closing the sale. It takes you 1 month. And you go through your sales process. And your sales process could be something like this. You call to set up the first meeting. Maybe you fly out to see the customer for the first time. Maybe you do a demo. Then you have to probably go back maybe to do another demo to different types of buyers that may be involved in the decision-making process, so forth and so on. You do proposals. You get that organized. Maybe you send out a demo. You wait for the field trial. You do the results. You review the results. You have another conference call, so forth and so on. You get the idea. It's a lengthy sales process that could take about 1 month, and there's typically 8 basic steps. And as you're moving this qualified lead that cost you $3,000 to acquire through the sales process, the cost of that lead goes up. So maybe after the first meeting or the second meeting, now, because of the money you spent, that lead is costing you, let's say, $8,000. As you move further through the sales pipeline, you're doing more. You're putting proposals together. Maybe you're flying out there a couple extra times. You're doing some field trials. Now the cost is 17, 18. And let's just kind of go all the way to the end that you finally close the sale. And by the time you add up all the costs from the cost per qualified lead, which started at $3,000, by the time you move them through the whole sales pipeline, your cost is $20,000. That's what it cost you to close that deal. $20,000. Now let's say that the lifetime value of this customer is $80,000. In other words, you can define lifetime value, let's say in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever you decide you want to do. But let's say it's 3 years. And you decide that over the next 3 years, this customer is going to buy $80,000 worth of products or services from you. So let's go slowly. To acquire the customer, it cost me $20,000. But the lifetime value, as I defined it over the next 3 years, the life cycle of that buyer, they will buy $80,000, which means that my return on investment, cost versus lifetime value of $80,000, cost me $20,000. My return on investment is 300%. What a fantastic deal. I don't know about you, but those are pretty good numbers. A return on investment of 300% is not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Now, that's that example. Now let's kind of go through more of a real world example. Instead of just using one client, let's talk about a real world scenario. You go through the sales pipeline, right? In other words, you went to the trade show, cost you $10,000. By the way, I'm repeating this because I really want you to get this. So you go to the trade show, you spend $10,000. You collect 100 leads. By the time you qualify the leads, they've cost you $15,000. Now let's say that out of that 100 leads, 5 were qualified. That means your cost per lead, again, is still $3,000, right? So you got 5 customers, right? So now you're going to put these 5 customers through your sales process, push them through the pipeline. Now, let's say that at the end of the sales process, 1 month, the sales cycle, you close 2 deals, but you lose 3. Now, if you close 2 deals, we already talked about how great that is, right? The cost is $20,000, lifetime value $80,000. And if you just double that, because we have 2 clients that we acquired, then that's pretty much $160,000 based on $40,000 investment. That's $40,000 divided by 2 customers, which is $20,000 per. But now I want to talk to you about the business we didn't get. The 3 out of the 5 we didn't close. If we moved them through the whole sales process and we did not close them, and I just described that the whole sales process is $20,000 per qualified lead, then if they went through the whole sales process / pipeline, then that means I lost 3 customers and the cost to me is $20,000 per, which is $60,000. So in other words, I just lost $60,000 because I lost 3 customers and the total cost per customer is $20,000. But what else did I lose? Well, let's talk about the lifetime value. See, if I had acquired the customers, the lifetime value of that customer would have been $80,000. But because I lost 3 deals, 3 clients, my total cost, quote unquote, my opportunity cost, is $240,000. Let me go slowly and repeat this again. I lost 3 customers. Each, when they go through the sales process completely, cost $20,000. So my total cost of lost business is $60,000. 3 times $20,000. But because I didn't acquire those 3 customers and the lifetime value of each of those customers would have been $80,000, I take 3 lost customers times $80,000, and that's $240,000 that I've lost. So take the 60 plus the $240,000. Losing 3 customers has now cost me $300,000. Now, on top of that, I could also add the opportunity cost of time of those 3 clients. In other words, which each of the 3 clients that we spent time with, we spent a month with them. Well, I lost 3 months. Each customer represented a month. I lost 3 months of productivity. So not only, let me repeat again to summarize, did I lose $60,000, which is $20,000 times 3, the cost of going through the sales process, I also lost $240,000, which is $80,000 times the 3 customers I lost. Remember, the $80,000 is the lifetime value. So that's $300,000. Plus, I also lost 3 months of opportunity costs. That is the total cost of what it costs to lose somebody, or a client in this case. Now, what I want you to do is really think about your process. How much money are you losing when you lose a deal? What is the real cost of losing business? Now, the way I like to use this example is when I'm talking to a customer and they're saying, Victor, it's too expensive to bring you in for $10,000 half a day or $20,000 for a full day's worth of training. I say, Mr. Customer, how much business are you losing and how much is that costing you? By the way, that's my close. That's the one I like to use. Because first I talk about the cost of losing business. And if I say, Mr. Customer, if you lose 3 customers and it costs you $300,000, can you now see how spending $10,000 or $20,000 on me isn't that expensive? That's how I use it. But I'd like you to think about how you would use it in terms of calculating how much business, how much money are you losing when you don't acquire a customer. And this is why having a sales process is important. So keep that in mind. I'll post this graphic. If you see this on YouTube, I'll have the graphic up, and hopefully you'll be able to walk through the graphic as you're listening to the audio when you're not driving. So this is Victor Antonio, again, with the Sales Influence Podcast. Keep in mind that my sales channel on YouTube is salesinfluence.com. So if you type in salesinfluence.com, that will take you to my channel. And also, I have a website called Seminars on Selling. Seminarsonselling.com, where I have programs that you can buy for your company so your salespeople can benefit from the information that I provide. That said, I'm signing off. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.
Every manager can feel it. The difference between a motivated, value-driven sales team and one that's stuck in a rut. CEOs know the difference too. They can see it clearly in the profit and loss columns. The question is, how do you get your team to this elite level? Is there something extra you can do to break through the remaining resistance and equip them with the right mindset to grow your business? Yes, there is. But you're not going to do it with one of those cheesy inspirational speakers or some self-proclaimed guru. What you need is someone with a real business track record to deliver key insights in a captivating way, to give your team the right tools for selling in today's tough marketplace. Enter Victor Antonio, experienced executive, innovative thinker, compelling speaker. He's ready to deliver the message you need your people to hear, not with a canned speech, but a customized, dynamic keynote designed to deliver results. Bring Victor Antonio to your next event before the competition does. Go to www.victorantonio.com for more information.